Alright, welcome everyone back to another developer update for the Soul Device 2. Today I'm talking about the third device in the game. So I had developer update 1, which is about the Soul Device, which is this one. Developer update number 2, which is about the Smelt Device, which is this one. And today we are talking about the third device, the Ice Device. Now this is also a device returning from the first game, and what it does is it creates ice. But unlike in the first game basically you shot out a projectile that when it hit a surface, it would create a mirror at a 45-degree angle, and then the horizontal and vertical shots the Smelt Device shot can be reflected off of it, as well as basically any type of laser. So in the Soul Device 2, it has a similar function in creating reflective ice, except instead of creating actual mirrors, it coats a surface in ice like this. So if I shoot any surface, it'll coat it in ice, and if I shoot a corner, it will wrap around just a little bit. And if I shoot a external corner, it will wrap around the corner and coat just about the same amount of surface area in ice. So without further ado, I'm going to move on further down this way. This elevator here goes back to the main testing hub. The footage of this is not final, by the way. This room was built specifically for testing the device, and you'll notice the ice start to disappear around here as it only lasts about 30 seconds. But yeah, this elevator leads back to the main testing room, which I might get into in later videos. So I'll push this button and open these. So the first thing you'll notice in this room is that there is a turret here. So the left-click primary function of the ice device is create ice, but the right-click function that comes when you unlock it is ice shield. Now, if I use this rapidly, you'll notice my battery's going down a little bit. Basically, with the ice shield, it depletes a little bit of the player's energy to create it, but once it's created, it's permanent until destroyed or released. So if I step into the turret's line of fire, you'll notice it'll start shooting bullets at me that deplete my health rapidly. But I can deploy the shield, and you'll notice the bullets bounce off of the shield. And so you'll notice my targeting reticle stops on the turret as opposed to walls, so I can shoot the walls behind it, or I can shoot the turret. Now, the ice device is capable of dealing direct damage to enemies. However, it deals a little less damage than the Smelt device, though it does shoot straight projectiles instead of arcing projectiles. And so here we have a wall covered in natural ice. Now, natural ice doesn't melt normally, and I also can't overlap it with ice device ice, but it can still be melted with things like the Smelt device, just like ice device ice can. So yeah. Moving on to the next room here, we have a pink laser up there. Now, pink lasers are not damaging to the player. So lasers currently range in intensity from pink to purple. The darker the laser, the more damage it will deal to the player. But pink lasers are non-damaging, so are blue lasers. So if I jump in this, it doesn't do anything to the player. Now, you'll see this door here has its operation switch on the other side of it. Now, to get to that, we need this right here. What this is a green receiver. Now, green receivers operate that all green receivers on the same network need to have a laser hitting them in order to activate the system. So this is the only green receiver on its own system, but it's on the same system as these doors. So if I activate this door will open. Now, those of you who understand puzzle mechanics have probably already figured out this puzzle, that this laser is pointed at a slanted surface that would bounce directly onto this receiver here. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to coat this surface here in ice, and the laser is going to bounce onto that surface, and these doors unlocked. And if I cut off the laser, you'll notice that the doors relock as the green receiver stops receiving. You have about a half a second grace period between when the receiver stops receiving and when the network relocks. And if the door is open and the player standing in it, it will not shut on the player. So I'll go ahead and flip this switch, and now, regardless of whether this is blocked, those doors will remain unlocked because that switch overrides receivers. Moving on to the next room, this is my standard NPC stand-in who offers the upgrade menu, so I'm going to move over to the ice device and open the menu. So what we've seen thus far is the Icicle bullet, which fires a long-range ice that spreads on contact, and the right-click, which is the shield that blocks a number of hazards. And it breaks when it's hit and needs to regenerate, which takes a little bit of player's HP, and it's not very big. It's directional. You have to point it towards your incoming obstacles. But so the second function of the ice device is icy spray. So I'm going to focus on this first. So this is basically a short range version of Icicle Bullet. Icicle Bullet's long range, it coats things, but Icy Spray is a short range version that can coat a lot more for a lot less HP. This is useful in some circumstances if you need to coat a very large area in ice very quickly, and there are some hazards I'll get into in later videos that this is very good at dealing with very quickly. Second of all is Icicle Eruption. Now what this is this shoots out a arcing projectile, so I'll turn off force mode here. It shoots out an arcing projectile, and where it lands, it creates an icicle perpendicular to the surface it hits. And I'll get into the usefulness of this later. And finally, we have the middle click function, which is the scope. Now the scope is very unique to the ice device in that it allows you to, well, see far away. By middle clicking, it turns on the scope, and the scope will move the camera from the player depending on how far the mouse is from the player. Now this can be a little disorienting if you're moving the mouse around. It's kind of like camera shake when you're recording something. But if the mouse is still, it won't move from the player. So this can be very useful if you have an enemy that's far away and you're out of their line of sight. You can throw up your shield, you can snipe them, etc., etc. So I'm also going to purchase the Sprout Beam on the Soul device because this is also very similar to Icicle Sprout. Now these two function very similarly. The difference being that this is made of ice and the Soul device reflects off of it. You'll notice my Sprout Beam just kind of reflected off and hit the player, but couldn't build because you can't build Soul nodes on the player. So yeah, and then I can reflect a whole bunch off of this. And you'll also notice that this tapers just slightly. Now this actually counts as a non-flat surface. So if I hit the angle there, it will reflect off at an odd angle. And of course you can also, melt these with the smelt device. Whoops. And if you happen to impale the player, it will not solidify into a solid wall until the player is not standing in it. So you don't accidentally trap yourself. Oh, kind of like that. Still working on that. When the player should be standing still in a situation like that, and functionally he is. You can still jump out of that. I just need to work on the actual visuals of it. But anyway, this door is locked, and we need to find the switch for it. There is a green receiver here, which hints that there is a laser nearby. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Icicle Sprout and start making platforms. And the nice thing about this is a similar thing with Sprout Beam, is you can just jump and shoot projectiles underneath yourself. They're coming up on a platform over there, so I'm going to go to the opposite wall. And yeah, so you can just go straight up. Oh, whoops. And you can kind of combine these together. Again, this is treated as a rounded surface, even though it looks flat. So now we found the laser. So this is a blue laser emitter, as we've seen in previous videos. And we want this to hit that crystal wall right there that is in the corner, so it reflects down and hits the thing. So with the smelt device, I'm going to fire on this, and there we go. It is now up and clear. So I'm going to carefully remove these, and then I'm going to use Soul Erasure to get rid of those nodes. I'm going to give myself a place to jump down there so I don't take too much fall damage. I'm going to get rid of that. Get rid of these nodes, jump down to the screen platform, and we're good to go. The laser is now being received by the green receiver, and this door is unlocked, so we can continue. Now, this room has a green receiver on the top and the bottom. These are on the same network, so in order to open these doors, both of these will need to receive. Luckily, there are two lasers in this room. So this is a power switch. The power switch can be toggled on or off by pressing the interact key, and this turns on these lasers. So it looks like one beam, but this is two beams overlapping. One beam has to hit the top and one has to hit the bottom. So the way to solve this puzzle, very simply, is to bring a platform over to the middle and then just kind of angle it down like that. And now what we can do is we can reflect that there. And if I jump up here a little bit more, I can shoot that there and reflect that at the top. Now this is barely on the surface. I'm designing it so that you get some leeway. In this, so that you don't have to get it perfectly exact, because this is a very freeform system. But if I were to cover this in ice, you'll see this door locked. It's technically no longer receiving. It needs to be hitting the receiver, and there needs to be no ice in the way. So that puzzle has been solved. So this one's a little bit more complicated. So in this room, you will see that there are green receivers and red receivers. Now the red blocks, if those are receiving a laser, will lock the system. So these 4 green receivers and these 2 red receivers are all on the same network for these next 2 doors. So in order to open the door, all 4 green receivers need to be receiving and both red receivers need to be not receiving. So if I hit this switch, you'll see that these lasers are coming across to these, and these lasers are shooting across to the red receivers. And it's not so simple that you can just block both red receivers because these green receivers behind them are not being hit. So the way I've designed this puzzle specifically is if you bring a line down from above here, try and line that up perfectly, wonderful. And then if I shoot ice on this side and on this side, there we go. These lasers are now reflecting back into themselves, and these lasers are now reflecting off onto their own adjacent sides. So I can now move on from here. Now these are yellow lasers. Yellow lasers are different from all other lasers in the game in that they are solid. This is a returning feature from the first game, which featured yellow lasers that were solid to the player. They were much thicker than other lasers in the first game, and also fully solid, but in this game, they're not. You can actually shoot through them. These function as semi-permeable barriers. They're only solid to the player. So what I can do is I can just cut it off with Soul Beam and jump up here. And I could cut this one off with a Soul Beam too, but I want to show that these are fully laser. You can reflect them with the shield. Now you want to be really careful not to do anything too silly with these because you can end up reflecting it through the player and it will deal massive damage to the player as a solid object colliding with the player. But yeah, you can walk on these. They have their own little sound effect for walking on a laser. And you can reflect them. So if I do that, it registered there that I was in the laser, whoops. So yeah, and then if I do this, then this is now reflecting back up. But yeah, then I can do stuff like this. I can hit that. And yeah, these reflect normally. And so what I can do here is I can just do a quick build and cut that off and then fall down. So this turret over here, this is a different kind of turret, a laser turret. So if I step out in front of it, beep, beep, you'll notice it starts shooting a pink laser that slowly turns purple. As I mentioned earlier, purple lasers deal a lot more damage. So you'll notice my health is now rapidly cycling as I haven't implemented death yet, but this purple laser is dealing massive damage. So beep, beep. When it loses sight of me, the laser beep, becomes purple again. But what I can do with this is I can just block with the laser shield. Now the laser shield is not fully rounded yet. I haven't the sprite for it is just a sketch, so it doesn't reflect perfectly yet. But you'll notice that I can just block the laser fully and the laser doesn't destroy the shield at all. Beep, beep. But if I step in, I can just shoot the turret real quick, and I can just sit here and shoot the turret until it dies. There we go. The turret is now dead. And so I have another descent here, as I've had in the previous rooms. One wall is crystal, one wall is not, so I'm just going to use Icicle Sprout to drop down decently easily. And there we go. Here's the ground. All right, now this is lava. It does not have a visual indicator yet, but basically when you touch this, it will basically instant kill you. You have 1 frame to react at full HP, when you have a lot of HP. So my current max HP is 25. This will deal 50 HP in damage per frame. So when you have 100 health, you have a single frame to react and get out of it, or rather when you have more than 50 health. But death is not implemented, so if I touch this, it won't kill me, and I can just get right out of this. So, how do you deal with lava? Well, there's a couple things to note. First of all, ice can't exist near lava, so if I shoot ice here, you'll notice it stops spreading once it gets too close to the lava. If I shoot over there, it won't exist anywhere close to the lava. The lava itself extends a little bit underneath the ground here, for a reason that if you shoot the lava's surface, you will harden the lava and create a platform that you can step on. And this will be perpendicular to the lava surface. So I can just step on these. These are also grindable. So with the smelt device, I can grind these up and recharge battery, which can be a good way to charge battery because these things, I believe, they generate more battery than they cost. Bear in mind that you do not want to grind the one you are standing on. But you can grind it just a little bit, and as long as you don't break it, you can get a little bit of battery out of it. So this next lava pool is really long. You can see I can't even see past of it with my scope. So there's 2 ways to handle this. The first one is the obvious way I've just been showing off, is doing this. Now, this is the really cheap and efficient way, but there's several ways to solve this puzzle, because you can also just kind of quick build over it. Or you can just do this and jump between platforms. Depends on how easy you want, of a time you want, how much effort you're willing to put in between jumping between platforms. And now I'm at the other end of the lava pool. So this here is another generic gunner enemy, and so he exists here to show off another facet of how the ice device works against enemies that aren't turrets. So you'll notice he's shooting me, it's dealing massive damage, bunch of HP per hit, I believe 30 HP. But I can block this with the ice shield, of course, and you'll see it's taking significantly reduced damage because the ice shield has to regenerate each time a bullet hits it. But I'm generally gaining more HP than I'm losing this because he has to reload. This is an advantage you have against enemies you don't have against turrets. Now what I'm going to do is, once my HP gets much more full, is I'm going to begin shooting him in return with the ice device. Now I'm actually going to use the spray feature for this, because if I jump up and hit him with this, he is now solidified. He is now encased in ice and slowly taking suffocation damage. This functions as a solid block. He will unsolidify shortly as it wears out. Whoops. He's not supposed to be able to solidify like that if the player's overlapping him, but rest assured I'll look into it. So yeah, you can thaw him instantly with the smelt device, and also you can deal direct damage to him with the icicle bullet. It doesn't deal nearly as much direct damage as the smelt device, but you can do it from a range outside of from where he can see you, and you can have the shield out at the same time, as well as use the scope. And it can also freeze him and lock him in place for a moment. So that is all I have to showcase for the ice device this time. I will be working on a room to showcase the fourth and final device from the main game, the saline device. But thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.